There comes a moment in life when the noise fades, the crowd disappears, and you find yourself sitting in silence, alone. It's in that silence that you finally meet the real you. No validation, no fake smiles, no background applause, just you and your thoughts. Most people run from that feeling, terrified of what they might find. But the truth is, being alone is not weakness. It's the birthplace of strength. When you walk alone, you learn to depend on your mind, your will, your discipline. You stop chasing people who never cared and start building the life they'll wish they never left. The world tells you that loneliness is painful, but that pain is power in disguise. It's in solitude that you discover who you are when no one is watching. You realize your energy is sacred, your time is gold, and your peace is priceless. The strongest warriors are forged in isolation, not comfort. When you learn to stand alone, you become unstoppable because you no longer need anyone to stand with you. S. Solitude builds self-mastery, and those who understand this truth unlock a power that most people will never touch in their lifetime. Being alone is not a curse. It's the ultimate classroom for growth. When you are alone, every distraction fades, every fake influence disappears, and you are left with one person, the only person who truly determines your future, you. Most people fear solitude because it forces them to face their weaknesses, their insecurities, and their truth. But what they don't realize is that this confrontation is the foundation of transformation. You cannot master the world until you have mastered yourself, and self-mastery begins when there's no one left to hide behind. When you sit in solitude, your mind becomes your mirror. You start to see your patterns, your habits, your emotions, the good and the bad. You realize how often you've allowed others to control your mood, your confidence, your direction. In that awareness, something incredible happens. You start to reclaim your power. You begin to understand that you are not just a product of your environment, but the architect of your destiny. Solitude gives you the space to think clearly, to listen to your own intuition, without the noise of opinions that never built anything. It's in the quiet hours when no one's watching that your discipline is tested and built. You begin to notice that your greatest competition is not other people. It's the lazy, doubtful version of yourself that whispers excuses in your mind. Alone, there's no one to impress, no one to perform for. It's just you versus you. That's where true discipline is born. When you wake up early, even when no one is cheering. When you push yourself to work harder, even when no one is watching. When you choose growth over comfort day after day, you are sculpting a version of yourself that the world won't recognize but will one day admire. Solitude strips away illusions. It shows you what really matters. You start to detach from meaningless, social validation, cheap entertainment, temporary pleasure. You begin to value silence over gossip, peace over attention, purpose over popularity. This shift changes everything. Suddenly, your energy becomes sacred. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't understand your vision. You stop begging for support from those who never wanted you to win. You realize that not everyone can go where you're going, and that's okay. The path to greatness is often walked alone. People who spend time alone aren't antisocial, they're focused. They've realized that solitude is where clarity is born. It's in solitude that you create plans, make decisions, and hear the voice of your own soul. Every great leader, creator, and warrior in history had moments of isolation where they refined their vision, rebuilt their strength, and returned to the world unstoppable. Being alone allows you to reset your mind, recharge your spirit, and realign with your purpose. It teaches you emotional independence, the ability to stand tall regardless of who stands beside you. Most people seek company because they can't stand their own company. But when you master solitude, you fall in love with your own presence. You start to enjoy your own thoughts, your own growth, your own energy. You become the kind of person who doesn't need to be entertained because your goals, your dreams, your mission keep you alive. You stop chasing people because your focus is on becoming the best version of yourself. And that version, strong, calm, self-aware, is magnetic. The world begins to chase you. Hebrew solitude also builds emotional resilience. When you've spent nights battling your thoughts and days pushing through silence, no rejection, no betrayal, no loss can break you. You've already faced your darkness and learned to walk through it. You no longer crumble when people leave because you know how to stand on your own. You no longer beg for validation because you validated yourself through discipline and salts. You no longer need to prove your worth because solitude already revealed it to you. Self-mastery means having sign, thing, a bricks. Silence reveals truth and direction, but most people never experience it because they're addicted to noise. The constant chatter, the endless scrolling, the need to always be distracted. It keeps them comfortable, but disconnected. They fear silence because silence forces them to feel, to think, to face what they've been running from. Yet, the greatest clarity, the deepest truths, and the strongest directions are found not in chaos, but in stillness. When everything goes quiet, your soul begins to speak. And that voice within, the one you've been drowning out with noise, knows exactly who you are and where you need to go. In silence, you see life for what it truly is. You start noticing how much of your mind was being filled with opinions, lies, and expectations that weren't yours. The world loves to keep you busy and distracted because a distracted person is easy to control. But silence breaks those chains. When you embrace it, you begin to see the truth, what matters, what scent, who's real, who's pretending. Silence filters out the nonsense and leaves only clarity. It's in that quiet that you finally hear the difference between what the world tells you to do and what your heart has been begging you to do. The truth is, silence isn't empty. It's full of answers. When you sit alone with your thoughts, the fog begins to clear. You begin to understand the reasons behind your pain, the purpose behind your struggles, the lessons hidden in your losses. You start to realize that everything you've gone through was preparing you for something bigger. But you can't see that when your life is filled with constant noise. You need silence to connect the dots, to understand your path, to recognize the voice of wisdom that's been buried beneath fear and doubt. People think they need advice from everyone around them, but what they really need is quiet, because silence is the best teacher. It doesn't tell you what to do. It helps you discover it yourself. It doesn't fork ye direction. It reveals it naturally. When you stop talking and start listening to your heart, your instincts, your intuition, you realize that you already have the answers. You were just too distracted to hear them. In silence, your thoughts slow down, your emotions settle. You begin to notice patterns, the same mistakes, the same toxic cycles, the same distractions that kept you stuck. You start to see your life from a higher perspective, not just reacting to every moment, but understanding the bigger picture. That awareness gives you direction. It tells you what needs to change, what needs to end, and what deserves your energy. Silence gives you the courage to walk away from what's no longer serving you and the strength to walk toward what's meant for you. It's in the quiet moments that decisions become clear. You stop seeking permission to follow your dreams. You stop needing approval to take action. You stop fearing failure because you finally understand that every step, even the painful ones, are part of your evolution. Silence removes the external noise so you can align with your internal compass. It's not about doing nothing. It's about becoming aware of what you're doing and why. That awareness is what turns confusion into confidence and chaos into clarity. When you live in a world that glorifies constant talking, constant movement, constant validation, choosing silence is an act of power. It's saying, I don't need noise to feel alive. I don't need approval to feel valuable. It's choosing inner peace over external chaos. And that's what separates the strong from the weak, because the weak need distraction to escape themselves, but the strong face themselves in silence and grow. Silence also strengthens your connection with the present moment. You stop replaying the past or worrying about the future, and you begin to live right now. You start noticing the beauty in simple things, the sound of the wind, the rhythm of your breath, the calmness of just existing. This awareness makes you more grounded, more patient, more focused. You begin to live with intention rather than reaction. The greatest thinkers, warriors, and leaders in history all understood the power of silence. They withdrew from the noise to reflect, to plan, to evolve. They knew that silence wasn't weakness, it was preparation. Before every great move, there's a moment of stillness. Before every transformation, there's a moment of reflection. Silence is not a pause, it's the foundation of every powerful comeback. So, if you ever feel lost, don't look for more noise. Don't rush for answers. Find a quiet space, close your eyes and listen. The direction you've been seeking is already within you, waiting for the world to quiet down so you can hear it. Because silence doesn't just reveal truth, it guides you to the version of yourself you were always meant to become. And once you learn to trust that voice that speaks in silence, you'll never be lost again. Isolation creates unshakable discipline. Because when you're alone, you have no one to lean on, no one to motivate you, and no one to push you but yourself. That's where real strength is born. Most people rely on external motivation, friends, applause, validation. But the problem with that kind of motivation is that it disappears the moment people stop watching. Discipline born in isolation, however, never fades because it's forged in silence, tested by loneliness, and strengthened through repetition. When you spend time alone, you start to understand that no one is coming to save you, and that realization forces you to build yourself. You stop waiting for the perfect conditions and start creating them. Bro, in isolation, excuses die. There's no one to blame for your lack of progress. No one to point fingers at when things don't go your way. It's just you versus your own laziness, your own fear, your own self-doubt. That's when you learn what true discipline really means. Doing what needs to be done, even when, you don't feel like it. People who master discipline in isolation become dangerous, not in a destructive way, but because they're unstoppable. They move with purpose, fueled by consistency, not emotion. They've trained their minds to work when others rest, to push when others quit, and to keep going when no one is watching. Isolation builds a mindset of accountability. When you're alone, you become fully responsible for your success or failure. You start seeing that your results are a direct reflection of your habits. There's no pretending in isolation. You can't fake effort. You can't lie to yourself. Every missed workout, every wasted hour, every broken promise echoes louder when you're by yourself. And that sting, that self-awareness is what transforms you. Because pain in isolation isn't punishment. It's feedback. It tells you where you're weak, and it gives you the chance to fix it. People often see isolation as loneliness, but those who understand its value see it as training. Gym for your mind. Every day spent alone, focused and disciplined, builds mental muscle. You start waking up early, not because someone told you to, but because you decided to control your mornings. You start setting goals and crushing them, not for attention, but to prove to yourself that you can. That's where self-respect grows, from the promises you keep to yourself when nobody's looking. And when you build that kind of respect, you no longer need motivation. You become your own source of drive. Isolation also eliminates distractions. You realize how much time you've wasted chasing approval, explaining yourself, or trying to fit in. When you cut all that out, you free up mental energy. You start focusing only on what truly matters, your growth, your health, your purpose. That focus sharpens your mind like a blade. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. Every decision becomes calculated, every action deliberate. This is how isolation transforms you from scattered to strategic. The longer you stay in isolation, the more you understand the power of structure. You begin to value routine, discipline, and consistency. You stop chasing excitement and start respecting repetition. You realize that greatness is not built in moments of hype, but in quiet hours of hard work. You learn to love the grind, not because it's easy, but because it shapes you. Every morning, you rise without applause. Every night you stay focused while the world sleeps. You're building something inside you that no one can take away. The truth is, isolation tests your limits, but it also expands them. You begin to push past what you thought was possible because you're no longer performing for others. You're performing for yourself. You stop comparing your journey to anyone else's and focus only on progress. That's where power lies. The person who can stay disciplined in isolation can dominate in any environment because they've trained their mind to obey, not negotiate. Rare when you come out of isolation, people will notice a difference. You'll carry a calm confidence, a quiet strength. You won't need to talk about what you're doing. Your results will speak for you. You'll move differently because you faced the hardest battle of all, the one with yourself, and you won. That's what makes discipline unbreakable. It's not built on motivation. It's built on self-command. So many people fear being alone, but those who embrace isolation use it as a weapon. They understand that isolation is where focus deepens, character hardens, and discipline becomes second nature. It's not punishment. It's preparation. It's where you learn to control your mind, your habits, and your destiny. Because once you've mastered yourself in isolation, no noise, no distraction, and no setback can shake you. You become your own leader, your own motivator, your own competitor. And that's when you become unstoppable. True strength is born without validation. Because real power does not come from Applause of others. It comes from the battles you fight in silence, from the moments when no one sees you struggling, but you keep moving anyway. Validation is like a drug. It feels good for a moment, but it makes you dependent. People get addicted to praise, to likes, to approval until they forget who they are without it. But when you learn to live, fight, and rise without needing anyone to clap for you, you unlock a kind of freedom that cannot be taken away. You stop performing and start living. You stop trying to impress and start improving. That is where real strength begins. Most people chase validation because they've never learned to validate themselves. They wait for others to tell them they're enough, they're talented, they're worthy. But what happens when the world stays silent? What happens when no one sees your effort? When no one believes in you? When you get ignored or doubted? That's the moment your true character is tested. You either break or you build yourself. Strongest people in this world didn't rise because everyone supported them. They rose because they kept going when no one did. They learned that the world owes them nothing and that their worth is not a negotiation. When you stop chasing validation, you start focusing on results. You stop wasting time explaining your dreams to people who don't care, and you start building in silence. You stop needing recognition because you realize recognition doesn't create progress. Discipline does. Every hour you put in behind the scenes, every sacrifice you make that no one notices, every time you choose to keep going when others quit, that's where your strength is formed. The gym, the office, the late nights, the lonely mornings, those moments build warriors. Validation builds dependence. Silence builds resilience. Validation can be dangerous because it can blind you. When you live for approval, you start shaping yourself to please others. You silence your truth to fit in. You play small so people won't feel threatened. You forget your own purpose trying to meet their expectations. But when you stop needing validation, you begin to walk in your own power. You make decisions based on your values, not opinions. You speak with conviction, not fear. You start living life on your terms, not theirs. The day you stop caring about what people think is the day you start becoming who you truly are. The truth is, validation feels good because it makes you feel seen. But strength comes from being unseen and still choosing to shine. It's easy to be confident when everyone is cheering, but can you stay confident when the world is silent? Can you stay committed when no one is watching? Can you still believe in yourself when no one believes in you? That's where strength is born. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Not in noise, but in solitude. Not in recognition, but in the quiet grind that no one celebrates. Every great person you admire went through a season where they were doubted, overlooked, and dismissed. They didn't stop. They didn't complain. They didn't beg for attention. They just worked. They built their name when no one was saying it. They trusted their vision when everyone else called it impossible. That's what separates the strong from the weak. The weak need constant reassurance. The strong are their own reassurance. The weak wait for permission. The strong give themselves permission. The weak crumble without praise. The strong perform regardless. Where you no longer need validation, your energy changes. You move with quiet confidence. You stop trying to prove and start to improve. You don't need to announce your next move. You just do it. You don't need to argue with doubters. You let results shut them up. You understand that validation is temporary, but legacy is permanent. And legacy is built not by those who seek attention, but by those who stay consistent when no one's watching. True strength means knowing your worth even when no one acknowledges it. It means trusting your path even when it's lonely. It means showing up every day, not for applause, but for the vision you carry inside. Because if you need people to believe in you to keep going, then your belief is weak. But when you can believe in yourself when no one else does, that belief becomes unbreakable. The world will doubt you, mock you, ignore you until you win. And when you win, those same people will act like they always believed in you. But by then, you won't need their validation because you'll know that your power didn't come from them. It came from within. True strength isn't about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about standing tall, even when no one claps, because you know who you are, what you're capable of, and where you're going. That's what makes you powerful. That's what makes you unstoppable. Once you conquer loneliness, you conquer everything, because loneliness is the most powerful test life can give you. It's the moment every comfort is stripped away, every distraction fades, and you were forced to face the one person you can never escape, yourself. Most people crumble in loneliness. They chase company. They drown themselves in noise. They beg for connection just to avoid silence. But those who learn to embrace it, those who look loneliness in the eye and say, I'm not afraid of you, discover something extraordinary. They become untouchable because when you can stand alone, nothing and no one can break you. See, where loneliness exposes your deepest fears and insecurities. It shows you how much of your happiness depended on other people. It reveals the emotional weaknesses you've been hiding behind attention, relationships, and validation. That's why loneliness feels painful. It's a mirror showing you the parts of yourself that still need healing. But if you face it instead of running from it, you grow. You start to rebuild your strength from the inside out. You stop looking for someone to complete you because you realize you were always whole. You stop waiting for love because you start becoming love. You stop begging for acceptance because you finally accept yourself. That transformation is the foundation of freedom. When you conquer loneliness, you learn self-control. You stop needing constant communication to feel relevant. You stop chasing people who drain your energy, and you start protecting your peace. You begin to enjoy your own company. You learn to sit in silence without panic, to think deeply without fear, to build quietly without applause. This is where power grows. The ability to be content and focused in solitude is the mark of true strength. You no longer depend on others to motivate you because your vision fuels you. You no longer seek validation because you've created your own inner peace. You no longer fear being left out because you've learned that being alone is not the same as being empty. It's the space where greatness begins. Loneliness also teaches you how to detach. You stop holding on to what's not meant for you. You stop forcing connections. Stop begging for attention. Stop explaining your worth. You realize that if someone walks away, it's not a loss. It's a clearing. Loneliness teaches you that peace is better than company that makes you feel small. It trains you to value quality over quantity, silence over noise, alignment over attachment. You start choosing yourself every time, and that decision changes everything. Because once you understand that your happiness doesn't depend on anyone else, you become unstoppable. The truth is, loneliness is the birthplace of self-discovery. It's where you find out what you truly want, what you truly love, and who you truly are. When the noise fades, your inner voice becomes clear. You start setting goals that actually matter to you, not the ones society told you to chase. You start healing wounds that you've ignored for years. You start forgiving yourself for your past, and you begin building the future you deserve. All of that happens in the quiet, in the solitude, in the moments when it's just you and your thoughts. The people who fear loneliness never reach this stage. They stay stuck in dependency, afraid to grow, afraid to be alone with themselves. But those who master it become limitless. When you conquer loneliness, you also learn emotional resilience. You stop breaking every time someone disappoints you because your happiness isn't in their hands anymore. You stop fearing endings because you know how to begin again. You stop being desperate for attention because you found peace in your own presence. You realize that everything external, relationships, success, recognition is temporary. The only constant is you. And when you become strong alone, you can handle anything. Rejection doesn't destroy you. Loss doesn't paralyze you. Change doesn't scare you because you've already faced the hardest thing, the silence of your own soul, and you